Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are here to talk about cavalry and its use in Valor and Fortitude. Cavalry in Napoleonic era have a massive impact in battle, both light and heavy cavalry. In a game it is hard to concretely replicate the use of massed cavalry, especially the light cavalry, because if we are talking about heavy cavalry, as we do in SEC, we'll see that their role on the battlefield is quite equal to the reality. But light cavalry have different role that we are covering now. Speaking about light cavalry in Valor and Fortitude, and speaking about the choices, in this case it doesn't matter if we are talking about chasseur and cheval, for the French or Austrian hussars or British humble light dragoon, because they have all the same stats. They have a melee ratio of 4 and tenacity of 3, and this put all the light cavalry almost on the same place, because they have no special rules set aside as strong for the British, but we come back on them later on. What is difficult to replicate is the role on the battlefield, because the light cavalry in Napoleonic era are the eyes and the ears of the army. They are the scouts. They pursue fleeing enemy and sometimes charge disorganized infantry or isolated platoon, but they are not made to crush the enemy line. This is the role of the heavy cavalry. On a tabletop, it's hard to use light cavalry as a recon force. First of all, because there is no real rule for recon, and even the eyes of the light cavalry spot the enemy, find the enemy on the tabletop is not realistic, because everyone exactly know where the enemy is. So how to use and how to do well with light cavalry in our game. In my experience, and I have to say it's not my favorite plan, but most often than not, light cavalry is useful to counter enemy light cavalry, or if used in mass, to counter or at least slow down and put casualties into the enemy heavy cavalry. And this, in my opinion, is something that diminished their role, their effective role on the battlefield, but the game forced us to use the cavalry in this way, because if we play casual scenario or a scenario with objectives on the field, such as the main scenario in the rulebook, light cavalry can move faster and grab the objective earlier, but they have not the resilience to hold them indefinitely. They are prone to fire, and they are prone to other cavalry. They can easily smash through them. So, how to use them efficiently? The best way that I found until now is to pack them in a large brigade made maybe by 5 4-unit, and this means not only cavalry but even horse artillery and some detachment to strain the brigade and use to counter the enemy cavalry. This is especially true for the French and for the Austrian and Prussian and Russian that have no special rule. I come back later on the light cavalry for the Brits. If you pack more cavalry, you can charge an enemy and get support for the other one. You can spread out one of your unit in open order, because light cavalry can do this, and protect their partner unit back, absorbing fire, and then move in the rear to try to rally and eventually to offer support. And if you have just few units, this is not possible. At least the minimum for efficient light cavalry brigade is 3. 4 units is better of just for the horsemen, and then 1 horse artillery, horse-drawn artillery, because the fire is essential to protect them in any case during the movement on the table. As I said, it's better situation of the use of light cavalry, because if you use to counter your enemy cavalry, you have to face 2 choices: be the first to charge in, or simply put a threat to the enemy, and then it starts something like a challenge to the corral, who will be the first one to charge. And if you are a British, probably you will be the first one. If you are a French, it really depends on what you want from your cavalry. You plan to simply slow down the enemy, so the longer you take to engage, the better, or do you want to crush them and put the enemy cavalry in a state that they are ready to go or easy to go with some fire of backup? And again, in this situation, for example, if you have 1-to-1, that is not the best situation, because everything go to the dice as usual, but you have not supported. Evaluating that we are charging in, so we move here and we move here in order to put as much casualty as possible. But now, as a matter of dice, because it's a matter of dice, have more unit to move back to offer support is crucial, because in this case, with the 3 unit, you can get 1 of your unit to get support. So this is why I suggest to use 4 squadron and a single brigade, because the charger 1 get the support from the back, and if they are not crushed in the first step of the melee, they can move back with a cavalry retreat and left the fresh one to take his place and finish off the enemy. In ideal situation, obviously, if the dice are against you, this is only theoretical speculation. Okay, so 4 if you plan to attack at least, and even in defense, get support, get a replacement, get fresh unit in to substitute the main line is crucial if you want to last your cavalry long enough to accomplish its plan. Previously, I say one of the role is to engage isolated platoon or platoon caught off guard, and this happen really rarely on this game. First of all, because it's hard to have an isolated platoon in the battlefield. Usually they move in brigade and close brigade to get their command range. They have the unit in command range. And otherwise it could happen if the opponent failed to activate a brigade, or have a platoon out of command range which failed to activate his command role for messages. So it could happen, but this is very, very situational. Anyway, this is one of the cases in which you can easily crush one platoon, even if in light. In my previous video I say that for light cavalry is a matter of luck to crush a platoon in line, and especially if it is full and without casualty and with some support, and not taking in account the cars. But in this situation, if you have a full brigade, you can easily charge with 2 squadrons into one line, and this is a good situation for you. because you are likely, very likely destroy this line. But this is very situational on the game. What could happen if that your cavalry can disrupt or crush the enemy detachment, or a platoon of light infantry in open order? And this came at risk, because assuming that this platoon is in open order, probably it will have support from the partner brigade back of them. I don't want to grab more model, but keep with me. I charge a platoon in open order, even with 2 of my cavalry, and in this case it rolls so few dice that very likely it will be routed. Then probably one of your platoon have taken 1 casualty, statistically at least 1 casualty. If the British is very lucky, or anyway, if the opponent is very lucky, you take 2 casualties. And assuming that you have not taken any more casualty before, now you are in the face of the entire brigade here. So if you want to go in this situation, in a detachment, or even in a platoon in line, and you want to force the hand of your enemy, be prepared to have room for the cavalry retreat. Because if you stay in place after crushing an enemy line, you will suffer so many returning fire that your cavalry probably, if not gone, will be, if not routed, it will be exhausted, shaken by the fire. So if you charge, because the rule say that after a melee you can make a cavalry retreat after crushing infantry, be sure to have enough room to move back of your partner unit, and maybe if you are not partner unit, to enough room to move outside the range of musket fire. Otherwise, say goodbye to your precious light cavalry, because probably it will go on. Okay, so when you plan to charge an infantry with your cavalry, make sure to do not close the space to return back with them, with infantry or other brigades, because you can interpenetrate your partner models in the brigade, but not other brigade. And this is a crucial thing to keep in mind. This is the last situation of a cavalry that may charge an isolated unit, and is artillery. On paper and on site it should be a dead artillery, but keep in mind that with canister rules, a single cavalry is not so sure to crush them, because in this case you cannot charge with both of your cavalry, because the rules stated that just a single unit can engage, and if you want to engage with more than one, you have to have not other target. But in this case the front of the battery is so small that even if you have no other unit forced to be charged, you have not enough room, and you cannot charge the flank so easily. You have to start in a position that you see the flank to enter in, or have a card. If you have a surprise attack, that you make a double move, but is very situational. And this situation here is not an assurance of winning from the cavalry. It's true that if you win, you will crush the artillery, but the maths is not only on the cavalry side. The artillery roll lots of dice, because this means that even if they don't crush, this unit here can be mauled in return and being useless for the rest of the game. So charge an artillery if you really need to crush it and have to take the risk, or just to keep in mind, or otherwise is a better solution to spread out like artillery in front of them, to be the close target, to absorb the fire, and use your carbine to try to shaken the artillery battery. And speaking about cavalry, don't forget that your light cavalry came all with carbine. So again, is another very situational situation, but sometimes it's better to stay put and use your carbine, combine carbine. In this case, for example, you have 3 dice that may shoot to a battery or to a square that have its firepower reduced, or anything else. But again, it's very situational because it's not so an effective fire, it's just 1 shot per 10. When your cavalry is beaten and you have lots of casualties spread among them, could be an option to block one side of the field and use their carbine to shoot at the enemy and try to give your life for time. That sometimes is the better way to win a game. Before we say that every light cavalry have the same statistics, for the French we have a mixed bag unit that are the Dragoon. Dragoon are rated heavy cavalry, so they can reroll the missed one in melee, but they have a tenacity of 3, like any other light cavalry. So they are quite fragile, and even if they hard hitters, they easily gone because they take their casualty quite fast during the game. So how to use them? I have to say, for example, you have to use Dragoon if you play in the Peninsula because they are the only heavy cavalry available. So how to use them? I have 2 options to give to you. 3 options to give to you. The plain one is use as they are because they are thinking this to work in this way. You're not hitting cavalry with no extra protection and no other. I think they're quite fast, but this is not replicated in the game. So use them as plain as they are, or you can pump them, paying more point for upgrade their tenacity to 4, and they became an effective heavy cavalry, or pack them in a light brigade, making a kind of mixed brigade, not infantry and cavalry, but light and heavy cavalry, especially for Peninsula, mixing hussars and dragoon, or chasseur and cheval and dragoon. So you have your light part to absorb the first casualties, to spread out to protect the heavy dragoon, then will charge in to finish the job. In this case, you can use your cavalry, a mixed brigade, let me say mixed brigade, as an hammer, using the light part to protect the heavy one, and then when it comes their time, we hoping that the enemy is quite ready to go. The exception is the British one that I never talked till now, because the British have a strong but a double side knife rules that is headstrong. Headstrong meaning that if they crush an enemy, they will charge into another one immediately and take a second melee with a 1 less die. And this is potentially brutal, but also potentially devastating for them, because if they end the first melee winner but take enough casualty, probably the second melee will cost them their presence on the field. And for this reason, again, if you play British, never less than 3 squadrons, 3 battalions, maybe 4 is better, and support them with horse artillery too. Because that strong is not an option, you have to charge in. So be very careful if you decided to charge infantry, for example, with the British, because if the French can perform a cavalry retreat, they cannot. They are forced to charge into the another target, and then if they crash an open order battalion, a detachment, not even a line, then they are forced to charge into the second line, and this time mats are really against you. For the rest, every consideration that I made for the French and the Austrian is the same for the British. So use your headstrong with a grain of salt. So charge when you are quite sure to win the melee, or charge when the odds are in your favor, or charge to make as much disruption as possible into the enemy line, and I strongly suggest enemy cavalry line, then be prepared to be left without light cavalry. And that's it. Now moving into the heavy cavalry. Heavy cavalry are the hammer of your army. And as I said before, if light cavalry in your tabletop cannot really replicate what they did in reality during Napoleonic era, the heavy cavalry can. And every list have lots of heavy cavalry. French have plenty of them. They have cuirassiers, carbineers, dragoon, and I talked about them before. And the Austrian have cuirassiers and the dragoon. The British have heavy dragoon and the guard household cavalry. I made my heavy dragoon for Peninsula, so I have only this to show you. Their role is practically the same. They are the hammer. They have usually 6 attack, 5 for the dragoon, 6 attack, 4 of tenacity, and the capability to end your job, your preparation to crush the enemy line. Statistics are the same, and again, British have to keep in mind they have headstrong. So what I said for the light cavalry is valid even for the heavy one. So be careful when you declare your charge with your British heavy dragoon. When use it? Sometimes I saw and used it early in the game, but the more I play, the more I realize that heavy cavalry need to strike at the right moment, because if you strike too early, they will be quickly spent and become useless. So they need to be at first in the right place at the right moment, and second, strike when you are quite sure that will break the enemy weak point. Then, as a matter of what you have to do in the game. Because if you crush a flank and your heavy cavalry, or your light cavalry, if you wisely used, is still around, they can turn the enemy and thread their flank, maybe stop its movement, force them in square, because heavy cavalry is not easy to manage by infantry. So cavalry that strike the line in the right moment can really turn the game in their favor. So be in the right place at the right moment. Sometimes they will act better as a deterrent than a real threat. Put heavy cavalry in range to charge will force the enemy into square, or to take a really strong risk to be then crushed and overwhelmed by your aviators. And if the enemy have light cavalry, keep an eye on them, because one of the role of the light cavalry could be sacrifice themselves in order to put heavy casualty into your heavy cavalry and make them useless in their later on effort in the field. So keep them back in your line, or even better, if the scenario have the possibility, and usually it has, left heavy cavalry in reserve until you really need them. If you are the attacker, prepare your attack have a good idea what is happening on the field, foreseen where the enemy could be make weaker, and then make the reserves arrive in that place. Or if you left it on the table, don't be afraid to move in your back rear to take the battle position for further attack. Don't be left it stop seat behind a wood to protect them from artillery, and then when you need it on the other side of the table, there is no more time to bring your dragoon or your cuirassier at the right spot. If you are the defender, it could be a good idea to left it reserve again and let them come where the enemy is most dangerous. To protect, in this case, one flank or the center, to have a counter-strike unit ready to ruin the plan of your enemy. If you foresee that your flank or your center is going to crumble, bring the heavy cavalry in that place, and if it's happened, send him to stop the enemy and turn it back. And that's it. Heavy cavalry is quite easy to use because it's a pure hammer and a glass cannon, because 4 of tenacity is not that better than 3. So be prepared to lose it, so get from them the best as you can. And the real threat with cavalry is to be aware where you need it, and be sure that have your heavy hitter on the right spot at the right place. How many cavalry? It really depends on your on the mission and your force. I play two squadron of heavy cavalry. I have 2 dragoons, I have 2 cuirassiers, I have 2 cuirassiers, I have 2 dragoons. You can pack more if you have more. They are quite expensive, so plan in anticipation what you really want from your in your list and from your heavy cavalry. What I may add is not to mix up if not forced by any situation. It's better to mix the dragoon with the light cavalry than the dragoon with the cuirassiers, in my opinion, and make a brigade stronger than 2 single unit if you can. Add a horseback artillery and maybe a detachment or 2. Speaking of detachment, I have to say that Perry have a really good box for the French dragoon. It's not the same for the other, but you have 8 dragoon on foot. They are perfect for make 2 infantry detachment of dragoon, which looks very cool if attached to a dragoon brigade. And they have a lot of advantage and less disadvantage than advantage, because you at first move quite easily with the cavalry, moving at the double if the enemy is far away. Then when they get some good spot to offer support to your cavalry or the rest of your army, you can forget them, because you probably never want to move them anymore, and have the free movement of your main block of dragoons, but even cuirassiers or whatever you want, and have the stronger number, because cavalry will end in a fortitude test sooner or later, probably soon than later. So have more than 5 units in a brigade means that you start your first Valor test at least at a 3+ or 2+, depending where your commander is. So there is possibility to have, as I said, a small dragoon detachment, but speaking about Perry, there are light dragoon on foot on their side, or a cavalry detachment to attach to your main cavalry brigade. If you add 1 cavalry detachment, you add a possibility to enlarge your cavalry brigade. Usually, if you ever follow my battle report, I prefer to use a small unit of Dragoon with the rule of Dragoon taken by American Civil War and the homemade Renaissance, so they can dismount and act infantry. They cannot charge, but they can shoot and remount, etc. In my opinion, they are more realistic in this way. But if you want to stay with the main rule, you can use a detachment. It can move faster. I see in them the possibility, the best possibility is to forbid the double move if you have the first turn. Move them out and you will short the range of double move of your enemy. Or if you have to take an objective or a particular spot isolated, you can send in your detachment, put in front to slow down, to assort the fire or slow down the enemy, but be prepared to have a fortitude test soon enough. Because with one of tenacity, they cannot charge anything, they cannot withstand fire. So, in my opinion, the cavalry detachment is quite useless. For this reason, I use the dragoon with the dragoon detachment with this rule. But anyway, if you are able to protect them along or lucky enough to survive your first Valor test, put them out of sight and keep it alive to make your brigade larger and have a bonus when you have to take later on a Fortitude test. And that's it for my experience in heavy and light cavalry in Valor and Fortitude. I hope you to hear your opinion and comments that we are always welcomed down below. So thank you for watching, happy wargaming, and see you as soon as possible. Bye bye.